Hello and welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We are the mother-daughter co-founders of the I Create Daily brand.
We are passionate about encouraging positivity, creativity, and productivity while bringing you information and resources that support your creative aspirations.
I Create Daily is for creators in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. So if you're into creating anything, this podcast has something for you.
So tell us, what would support you most in your journey? You can reach us at creators@icreatedaily.com.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Hello and welcome to the I Heal Daily podcast, creative conversations on health and healing, sponsored by iCreateDaily.com. I'm Leora.
And I'm Devani.
We need to begin with the usual disclaimers. I Heal Daily is a show for conversations on health and healing and cannot be construed as medical advice of any kind. Today's guest, it's your part, isn't it?
That's all right. Today's guest grew up behind the Iron Curtain in Czechoslovakia before immigrating to Canada at age 25. And all was well until one life change caused his health to plummet. That major life event was a catalyst that led Martin Pytela into eventually healing himself and instilled a passion for natural health and wellness. Since then, Martin founded the online natural health company Life-Enthusiast in 2001 and is also a certified metabolic typing advisor, which is a method that helps determine which foods and supplements will be most appropriate for your body. Martin and the team behind Life-Enthusiast make it their business to help people reverse chronic degenerative conditions, the source of aging and pain that plague so many of us. We're really looking forward to today's conversation with Martin on healing and the creative entrepreneurial journey. So welcome.
Martin Pytela.
Thank you, ladies. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you. I have been a customer of Life-Enthusiast, and for anyone who's tuning in at your computer, it is, or your mobile device, not driving, it is life-enthusiast.com, where I order natural supplements and herbal remedies in particular. I first started ordering one of your herbal remedies from Amazon, and then I found you online, and I've been extremely satisfied with your service, with your company, and the quality of products. So, and we're really looking forward to learning more about your actual story, like origin story. Now, how did it all get started? So maybe we could start there. Tell us the story of how health and natural healing became your life work.
I grew up in an ordinary upper middle class neighborhood family. My father was a veterinarian. I was indoctrinated with believing in science and believing in the industrial might and revolution and all of that. But it was the Iron Curtain. I grew up in a totalitarian country, and in 1975, I came to the conclusion that there's just no way that I wanted to live the rest of my life in that police state, always looking over your shoulder, always wondering who's listening, always wondering how things will turn out. And so together with several friends, we made this secret pact and figured out how to get out of there. This was a standard political refugee. We ended up in Austria, asked for asylum, and then emigrated to Canada, who graciously took us in.
Wow.
And sure enough, with my first job, it was a manual labor. I was working in a sawmill while learning to speak English and all that. It came with benefits. It came with full health and dental coverage. So sure enough, on my first week after I had my certified buy anything you want, it's covered. I went to the dentist and I said, I need a checkup. Haven't had one in a year. Well, the dentist went through and showed me how he could improve on me, right? It was 12 Mercury amalgam fillings that he decided that was best for me. I didn't know any different. I was ignorant. And
no one did then. Yeah.
I believed the professional. I thought that he was thinking of me. But no, he was really thinking of his economic interest then. I just didn't know. I didn't understand that a dentist is an entrepreneur. Anyway, so it was done in 4 stages, 2 weeks apart, and didn't take very long before I came up with a breakout of herpes on my lip, which I never had before. I was wondering, where's that from? And then, anyway, within a year or so, I had back problems. I started to fall apart. And again, why, right? Like
Right.
I was a very healthy 25-year-old and very sick 26-year-old.
Wow.
And then at some point then, I actually sent away my hair for hair analysis.
Hmm.
And it came back with high in mercury. And I was puzzling, well, where did that mercury come from? I'm not eating tuna or anything. Didn't connect any of it.
Oh,
But anyway, so years go by, right?
wow.
I'm slowly going downhill. Periodontal disease set in, back problems set in. I mean, I got fairly bad. Like several times a year, I would have an episode where my back would just go out, quote unquote, which meant that I would spend 3 weeks sleeping on the rocking chair face down with my head on the footrest kind of thing.
Wow.
Or crawling from that chair to the toilet on all fours because there was no way I could stand up.
Wow.
That sort of. So I was heading straight into wheelchair and who knows what.
Were you living with your friends at this point or by yourself?
No, by that time I was already married and I had moved on to a career in computers. I actually, it took me about 4 years to acclimatize to Canada and to learn the language sufficiently and all of that. So by that time, I was ready to start a real career. And I actually trained in hypnotherapy. So I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist.
Yeah. Right. For those listening and not watching, Martin is waving his finger in front of us to hypnotize us.
Thoroughly
Yeah.
hypnotized.
This service is undoubtedly worth $200 an hour.
Okay.
Anyway, so in the process of figuring it out, well, the thing that undid me was that people came, that the last case I took was a girl telling me that she was worried about her sister because her father was had sexual encounters with her, and she didn't want that to happen to her sister. Like that just undid me. I realized that there's no way that I can handle that level of responsibility. I wasn't up for it. So I instead switched to technology. I had a degree in computer science, and so I switched to computers, and that was that.
Okay.
So I was actually earning quite well and was able to spend lavishly on figuring out what's wrong with me. And I tried all kinds of things. Like I tried first the mainstream, I went to the orthopedic surgeon. They gave me hydrocortisone shot and wonderful. For 5-6 weeks, I was free of pain. And then it came back with vengeance because it solves nothing.
Right.
I spent a lot of money with chiropractors because they were able to straighten me out, but only for 2 weeks. And then because the structure was falling apart, I was just forever losing the adjustment. They were good mechanics. They would put me back together and then I would fall apart again.
What was the mercury? How was the mercury causing the structure to disintegrate?
Mercury seems to disable the body's ability to manufacture amino acids correctly. It sort of breaks down at the gut level. Like I believe that it's the microbiome that gets affected and the permeable bowel syndrome, the leaky gut.
Right.
Takes place, and all of a sudden you have all these different proteins leaking into the bloodstream, and then the immune system starts to struggle with that. And I think the primary issue is that the immune system is unable to maintain healthy structures.
Now, this was around 1980, right? Somewhere between 1975 and 1980. And I think that it was not well known at that point by the masses, and that mercury was an issue, that mercury fillings were an issue, correct?
Yeah, it was not.
Yes.
No.
We had them, and until just like even 10 years ago, we didn't know, and we got rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's correct. Back then, it was not well known. And none of the professionals that I went to had a clue. And what I really learned then is that all of them, everyone that I encountered, was treating symptoms.
Yes.
They would say, well, you have a bad back, therefore let's treat your back. You have a problem in the lower spine, let's deal with that. Or you have a plantar fasciitis, the structure of your foot is coming apart, let's treat that. What they were not doing is asking, and what is the cause of that?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. We've had similar experiences dealing with our own health issues and allergies and just different things going on, and going, it's like when you go to the specialist, they have this tunnel
myopic
vision on the specialty, and they don't necessarily look at your whole body and figure out like what's going on to have caused this thing.
Yeah, that's
like when we scrape our knee, it's because we were being clumsy and fell, not because our skin just like tore apart randomly.
Right.
Yeah, the standard kind of thing that comes to mind is headache is not caused by deficiency in Tylenol, and breast cancer is not caused by the deficiency of tamoxifen, and schizophrenia is not caused by the deficiency in, I don't know, name the favorite drug that's used for that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And as we know, the traditional medicine is set up to treat symptoms and not preventative or causative.
Right. So there's, of course, now a branch that's called the functional medicine, which is alive and well, rising from ground up, but it's not included in insurance policies.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical industry, which I call it the Rockefeller medicine, is owned by the Rockefeller Foundation. Well, Rockefeller and Carnegie, they got together and they funded universities. And the universities were only teaching the allopathic pharmacological methods. And that's what now we have. We have this unholy monopoly of the chemical medicine. The pharmaceuticals is the only thing that's taught, which is the only thing that's prescribed, which is the only thing that's insured.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I actually, because I was earning reasonably well, I soon decided that I was going to just step out. Like in Canada, we have this socialized medicine where a lot of stuff is insured, but none of what I was interested in.
Right.
None of what was insured worked for me.
Right.
Well, same in the U.S. where even though we have a lot of insurance programs that cover medical, I don't think any of them.
No.
There might be some maybe that cover naturopathic stuff, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. Hopefully that'll be changing.
Yeah.
Our family policy is catastrophic in case something major happens, but otherwise, most everything we do for remedies are out of pocket. So now, okay, so there you are. You had the resources. You started pursuing. You stepped out of, okay, this isn't working. So I've got to find my own solutions. And
right. Yeah, and so there came a moment I had this it's like come to Jesus moment, It wasn't about Jesus, but it was this moment where all of a sudden I had this crisis in which it was analyze this. And I was trained as a systems analyst. So on analysis, it was, everybody's applying the tactical, opportunistic solutions, where what we need to really do is apply the strategic, the foundational analysis to it. So once that got analyzed, all of a sudden we understand that at the cellular level, my body was breaking apart because it could not manufacture the types of molecules, proteins that were needed to maintain the structures and so on. Well, I mean, if you're watching me, you can still see on my face now at age 67, I do have some problems that remain. Like I'm not as good as new. I believe that when you crack a jug, you can glue it back together, but it's never going to be as good as new.
Right. But you look fantastic. So from our view, you look fantastic. So
All right, cool. Well,
robust.
I do have restrictions. Like, for example, I cannot eat the gluten type of products.
Right. Yeah.
It's just instant trigger.
Exactly.
Of course, we can get into the weeds why this is, like I used to be able to. In fact, when I went back to Europe to visit my family, I can eat all of that stuff there. I just cannot eat it in North America because here it is produced with the help of glyphosate, and it's genetically different.
10 times more gluten from what I gather. But
Yeah.
so how did you, so you started exploring, you became your own doctor, essentially, physician, heal thyself. So that took you on a journey of pursuing natural supplements. What happened next?
So that took me through the 80s. I think it was 89 when I realized that there was no way that anybody other than me is going to solve it. So through the 90s, it took me about 4 or 5 years to figure it out. By 97, 98, it was clear to me. And by 2001, I opened up Life-Enthusiast, which was me sharing with the world what I had learned, helping people in chronic degenerative health problems. I mean, there are about 250 different names for all these different degenerative conditions. Right. And they come as migraine syndrome, fibromyalgia syndrome, autistic syndrome, ADHD, cardiovascular problems, cancer, all of these various illnesses, Sjogren's, Hashimoto's, Williams, blah, blah, blah. I could go on forever rattling on these different diagnoses, which essentially are geographical names. Yes. Like the Sjogren's is that your eyes are dry and your saliva isn't running well. Hashimoto's is your thyroid's gone off. Migraine syndrome, well, that people understand. You have crazy headaches that take you out of commission for long.
Right.
Fibromyalgia, that's in the soft tissues and so on, right? So depending where this breakdown happens, that depends on genetics. But that it happens depends on epigenetics. It's whatever happens in the life. And interestingly, I'm of the opinion that with each succeeding generation that lives in the industrial world, it's getting worse. Because I believe that nature values the mother, but not the child. Nature will detox the mother through the placenta into the firstborn. And so it turns out that most firstborns have the greatest load of toxins. They may be aborted, they may not live, or they will be saved. I mean, I'm a firstborn. I lived, but if it was Middle Ages, 500 years ago, I wouldn't have.
Wow.
Right.
Well, I'm a weakling, really. I would have succumbed to some illness in my childhood.
And so we're kind of in this, we're at this place where we don't necessarily have to succumb to survival of the fittest. And is that maybe why we're still experiencing these things that likely, like, there weren't cures or remedies for these things before, right? Is that what you're saying? Or I guess what are you saying when you're saying that if it was up to nature?
Yeah, it's really hard what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. Back in the pre-industrial society, a typical woman might have had a dozen of pregnancies, but only see 4 or 5 of them grow up to adulthood. Children died. I mean, in Roman times, they didn't even bother naming their infants until they were 2 years old.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
To be sure. Yeah. So share with us now, when you started Life-Enthusiast in 2001 on the online version, had you already discovered that the source of all your problems was the mercury by then?
Well, it was not just the mercury, right? A huge component of illness is emotional makeup. I would say that 80% actually 80-20, 80% of our health problems are actually emotional injuries. I believe that we create our reality through, I don't know, I call it emotional injuries, but it's traumatic, whatever happens in the childhood. I don't know how we come by these, but that needs to be solved. So in the 1990s, I actually spent a good amount of time working through, I mean, the kind of techniques I would use now would be like body talk or EFT or quantum touch or touch for health or brain gym, all of these unusual, not well-known, but effective ways to get rid of the stored emotional injuries that we pack around. Like I had issues with my father and mother and whatever. I mean, I can get into it if this is of interest, but just...
No, I think it's more, I mean, it's not that we're not interested. We would love to know, but in terms of keeping on your schedule and not taking too much of your time, and also for relevance to our audience in this first interview, because hopefully we'll have more conversations with you over time. What we would really, so we'd like to know what was the process of you discovering your wellness? And it sounds like what you're saying, since 80% of it approximately was emotional, that was an unraveling process over time, and you used a number of different therapies for that. What was the moment in time that you discovered Mercury, the issues with Mercury, and made the connection with your hair analysis and your fillings?
Well, it was then, like by 1995, it was clear to me that that's what the problem was, and I discovered that Zeolite was a very effective way of keeping it at bay. And so, and again, it's not used in medical offices. They will use EDTA, intravenous drip. Zeolite is something that you easily ingest, no trouble, and it does an excellent job of it.
So Zeolite is a supplement or a substance that can actually help extract the mercury from your system or minimize
it will bind mercury, lead, and cadmium, and I think arsenic effectively. And
then eliminate it through the system harmlessly. So you had your fillings removed and replaced?
By the time I knew these answers and I started the Life-Enthusiast, I was no longer making oodles of money. I was now a starving entrepreneur.
Right.
So it took until I was 55. I gave it to myself at my 55th birthday to get rid of the mercury. So I had it out. Funny thing, right? The fillings went in at $100 each and came out at $1,000 each.
Wow. Yeah, wow. And many years later of suffering. But thank goodness you got rid of them. Thank goodness you found that. Can you spell, what is that again, that substance from mercury? What was that?
Zeolite starts with Z, like zebra, Zeolite, and subspecies variety called clinoptilolite, and it's a binder. It's used in industrial processes. You would use it to bind heavy metal spills and other toxic accidents in industrial settings.
Okay, so now you. How did you connect with the original creator of the Life-Enthusiast co-op?
Yeah, so there was Life-Enthusiast 1.0 that was started in 1989 by Javari Oberon, and they were manufacturing superfoods. They are made under the brand Exula, and we sell them. And to this day, I support the company and I'm involved. And the Exula superfood are important to us as something we offer to the world. So Javari was running a very successful, fast-growing network marketing company. It was known as the Life-Enthusiast, and the products were called Exela then. In 1992, they were 72 employees and $500,000 worth of stuff a month, growing like weed. And then the FDA stepped in and started to investigate.
Oh, wow.
And 18 months later, they came back, returned all the records and returned equipment and said, yep, everything's fine, carry on. But when you do that to a network marketing company, of course, that just takes all the wind out of their sails. So by the time I found them in 95. They were already suffering. And so it was like a restart in 2001 when we started again online. It was, the recipes were there, the people, it was back down to skeleton, just the owner and recipes.
So did you buy the company, or was it just like a mutually beneficial partnership where you just restarted it, relaunched it, created a new vision around it?
I guess Life-Enthusiast is currently the exclusive distributor of the products.
Okay, but owned by you, is that correct?
The formulas are owned by Javario Baran.
Right.
It's his brainchild. We are the distributor of it. We're the marketing arm.
Okay, cool. So you're the distributor. Awesome. So you're a distributor, distribution company, essentially, for natural healthcare products, natural health products, correct?
Yeah, we have 60 different companies that we represent, Exula being one of them, all of which I have found to measure up, to stand up. Most of them are owned by smaller or single original owners. They are the kind of companies where the passion for quality is still there, as opposed to the accountant and spreadsheet. And like I remember dealing with some companies that got sold, and all of a sudden, instead of what can we do for people, the customers, it was how much money can we extract out of this? And we no longer carry the brand because the soul went out of it.
Right.
Well, you guys also have a fantastic website, which we're obviously going to link in the show notes, and it has a podcast and tons of resources on health, just so people can start educating themselves more on some of their issues and problems and what they might be consuming, or their environment that could be contributing to their issues. So
yeah, and also you have a fantastic email list where you send out really good informational things that help people decide, is this product something I'm interested in? So I'm going to read this and look into it, because you do I think your own background in having to do your own research and stuff. Do you write the articles yourself? Do you have a writing team?
I'm quite a nerd, I'm an engineer by personality. I would just as soon design things than to schmooze at a party.
Yes, understood.
And so that's the soul of the company more than anything. So instead of being a huge success because I've hobnobbed with the powerful, I have focused on quality, and sure enough, we we offer fantastic customer service. People confirm it, and we offer high grade, high quality, extremely conscientiously curated products. So those who appreciate it, especially people who have had an experience, who have tried to get well and failed and failed and failed, they really appreciate when they find us, that they found us.
Right. Because and they're not just
we walk the talk, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's not just ordering some supplement from some unknown company on Amazon or whatever. That so a little aside on that, we sell products on Amazon, not supplements. We're not in that industry yet. Who knows? But we have been associated with Amazon sellers who, through an Amazon seller program, who were there, who had invested in that program in order to learn how to be better Amazon sellers, in order to learn how to sell more on Amazon, including tactics that were not honest. Those are the things that we were we were hearing about and learning about and not participating in ourselves because we did not agree with it. Things like fake reviews, how to get reviews, how to beg for reviews, how to incentivize people to give reviews, even if, such as selling them a product, having them buy a product so they become a verified buyer, and then gifting them back the total amount of that through PayPal so that they could hike the number of reviews they have, because more reviews usually equals more product sales.
Right.
Not only that, but there were many of them who For instance, one in particular comes to mind where they were going to source some kind of a white label. They were going to white label a supplement for the thyroid. And this person had hadn't even done any research on it ever up until that point. And at the time he did the research to find out what supplements to have this Chinese white label company create the supplement. Okay, yes, you need to have this and this and this in it, and then we should be good to go. We have a good thyroid supplement because that's what the research says is good for thyroid. Meanwhile, you have no idea of the quality. You have no idea, of the monitoring of the products and substances that are being put together overseas. And so therefore that's a shadow side of that industry that most people don't know.
In my entrepreneurial life, of course, I've studied these things too, right? Like I've also bought the A program, How to Make It Big, on Amazon. And we do have a store on Amazon. Life-Enthusiast is on Amazon, and we sell a number of things there. Because after all, if we don't, we're missing the boat. Amazon is a movement that's I both love and hate, because of course they eat my lunch, really.
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand, there indeed, I remember reading the book where the guy says, here's what you do. You find a product that you can get for $5 and have it drop shipped and sell it for 50. That's how you make money.
Right.
And yeah, that's what the pharmaceutical companies do. They figure out how to make something for pennies and sell it for hundreds.
Right. And now sorry, go ahead.
No, anyway, so that's, we try to put as much quality as possible into the products that we stand behind.
Well, and that's why I brought it up, because this is not a knock on Amazon. I mean, Amazon is an amazing company and has its place. It's just, anywhere you go, things can be altered. Like when Amazon finds out the companies are doing that, then they slap penalties or they close their account. So it is not their fault. It's just part of the animal that goes with that.
And it comes in any industry. It's just that when it comes to your health and what you ingest, it could have a much bigger impact than you might be realizing.
Or you could be spending money on something that has no real value, which is another reason why, we really value your company. And this is literally our passion for learning about other entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial businesses. This isn't a commercial for Life-Enthusiast. Martin has not paid us to say this, but and this is like one of those things. What we really enjoy following are those people who, like you said, you nerd out about this kind of thing. You love it. You're passionate about it. It is a part of your life, and that's what you're sharing. And that was the point I wanted to make. And so that therefore, when I get an email from you, I know it isn't a marketing email. I know it is something that you have studied and looked into and researched, and then have provided a solution for it.
Yeah, we educate and we have to sell, because if we don't sell, we're out of business.
Yeah,
there you go.
I want an educated consumer who, of their free will, comes to us and stays with us. In fact, the standard rule here is treat others the way you want to be treated.
Exactly.
The classic do unto others as you would, and so on. So, we were talking about the 80-20 rule. That's the emotional makeup of your existence will be responsible for a lot of the outcome. Well, I operate in the 20%, and even within that, the important things are air, water, and calories. It's really important. Well, in 2011, I finally made the last discovery of my educational path, which was metabolic typing. Okay. This is something that stands on the shoulders of giants going back maybe 100 years, but the discoveries are that there is biological individuality to each one of us. And we have various responses to food. Some of us are really good at converting food into energy, and others not as efficient. And the really efficient ones will burn out on a diet that's too rich in carbohydrates. It's sort of like putting gasoline into a diesel engine. It'll burn out. And there are the opposite, people who are not very efficient at converting food into energy, and those need to be given the lighter fuels. So, for example, somebody from tropical countries like India, for example, where there is ready access to fruits and vegetables year round, it's a lot easier to be a vegetarian because there's food like that available always.
Mhm.
Right.
But if you're living in Norway or Sweden or Scotland, you have 6 months out of the year where you have no access or no vegetables or no fruit. And so you end up eating local food resources like salmon and I don't know what, animal foods, right?
Mhm.
And so it's not as easy to be a vegetarian if your ancestors have lived largely on animal protein, or at least 6 months out of the year on animal protein.
Right.
And so, of course, now we're in this big experiment where everything's mixing with everything.
Yes.
Like the American native Indian who followed, what a strange word that we call it, native Aboriginal, who followed the buffalo, lived on red meat and berries and bear fat.
Yes.
Right? And then the Europeans showed up with whiskey and completely blew their metabolics.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, so what metabolic typing will teach is that there are some people who are overly acidic and need to be more alkalized, and there are people who are overly alkaline who need to be brought down into the middle because of the following. Overly acidic people are irritable and anxious and worried and impatient and driven. Overly alkaline people are procrastinating and are tending towards depression.
Hmm.
And for example, full-blown out depression is an over-alkalized state of physiology.
So
Oh,
is
wow.
that something that has been proven in studies with those who have a proclivity to depression? They're always over-alkalinized?
Well, studies would be a difficult thing to say, right? Because nobody's funding the studies because it's not convenient for the mainstream to do such a thing.
But what the individual can do is they can test, right?
Yeah, there's always the study of one.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because biological individuality within itself says that if you treat that person right, then you will get the right outcome. I'll say this, the double-blind study is a total fallacy because let's just say that I'll give potassium or a specific vitamin to a group of 10,000 people. Well, the fast oxidizer will react in one way and the slow oxidizer in another. And so depending on the statistical makeup of the people that have been tested or are testing this product, you will have outcomes that will be completely opposite.
Yes.
Like when I give somebody potassium, it may either make them alkaline or acidic, depending.
Right.
Right? So it will, how should I say it? The outcome of the study will depend on the genetics of the people in the study and
Right.
not on the product that's being tested.
Well, that's right. That's back to the metabolic testing. So that makes so much sense. I really like the concept of a study of one because we really do. I mean, Devani and I both have allergic reactions to different foods that have increased over time, probably an autoimmune inclination. Once you have a reaction to one food, it seems like those things increase.
Mhm.
And as does my mother. And interestingly, all three of us have had multiple different kinds of allergy tests, none of which revealed that we were allergic to what we know and have proven causes us to react most, such as soy, which brings us to something that you have written about on your site as well. You were looking into
I was looking at the you have different sections on your website, and I was looking at the soy one because I was like, well, we've struggled a lot with soy. We used to have it all the time because we're vegetarian, and so we used to eat all the different substitutes which were loaded with soy.
Yeah, tofu.
Right, tofu. And we then over many, many
Yeah.
years and personal study like you would have done, we discovered that wasn't
It was-
healthy. But then on your website, you go into like the different kinds of soy and how the way we eat it in the US is not the way that it's been used in Asian countries for centuries.
Mhm.
And so could you get into a little bit of that and how
Yeah.
that works?
Yeah, I actually had a period of time in the 90s when I went completely vegan. Both myself and the wife and the kids, we were vegans. And what's interesting, of course, we did make it work, but it didn't last because genetically we're not well suited to it.
Right.
So especially my wife, like I can make a vegetarian with the occasional piece of protein, but she's actually of the type that requires a lot of it. So when we were vegetarians, we were into the soy as well, or protein concentrates, right? Like we need protein somehow. So we thought, well, how about this? And fermented soy is a lot better than not fermented. So tempeh and miso are wonderful sources of nutrition, whereas tofu is not.
And is miso made differently in Asian countries than it is here?
Should not be. No, it should be the same fermentation. The challenge is the source, because of course soy has been genetically modified and you cannot buy soy in North America that has not been grown with the aid of heavy chemical treatment.
Yeah.
So
And I would
that's the
assume
problem.
the same with things like gluten, because gluten allergies are massively on the rise in the same way that soy allergies were several years ago.
I actually think that a lot of the problems are, again, self-inflicted. The invention or hybridization of dwarf wheat in the late 70s brought in wheat that's about 13% gluten instead of about 6 or 7. So we're now double the protein content of the wheat. The farmers are so proud of it. We are giving you more protein. And then lately, since the 90s, they started using glyphosate to dry out the wheat just before harvest, which gives them uniform, easy to harvest, richer crop. And of course, they're told glyphosate doesn't affect humans, therefore it's fine. Another fallacy, I don't know. We should probably not dwell on that today.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
because we can't solve that problem here today, but it's good to be aware of it.
Oh, I know. I'm going to say something. Yes, we can solve that problem. The number one solution to the glyphosate problem is humic acid.
Humic acid, can you elaborate?
HUMIC, humic acid. It tends to moderate the effects of it in the gut. It supports the microbes in the gut in such way that they overcome the damage caused by the presence of the glyphosate. So you can have a thriving microbiome when you support it with constant supplementation of humic.
Okay, so we will definitely put that in the show notes as well and look into that. That's really good to know. Definitely something worth.
There's some wonderful research done by Dr. Zach Bush. He is heading a company that sells a product called Restore, and he calls it Terrahydrate, and it's humic acid. And
So your company, Life-Enthusiast, do you have any of your own products, or are you distributor?
Exula is our own product, of course. We're in-house. We also sell magnesium products and under the brand Transderma. We also have our own label, iodine. Iodine is yet again one of those really important supplements that are underrepresented in North American diet. Everybody who lived anywhere close to the coast had ready access to a lot of iodine. A typical Japanese person eats about 100 times the iodine that a North American will eat.
Wow. Is it from the seafood then?
Yeah, especially seaweed. But, you know, like the nori and wakame and kombu and all of those wonderful words that, I mean, they have Latin equivalents, of course.
Yeah.
So they are part of the diet of the Japanese, but they also put it on their gardens. Like they would harvest, in the fall, there's a lot of kelp and such washed up on the shore. They would take that and compost it into the gardens. So those would be richly mineralized by the seaweed.
Right.
So even when you grow carrots and cabbages on that soil, you have a lot of good minerals coming in that.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great point. So do you sell also some various forms of spirulina or iodine as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sell all of that. Yeah, the full nutritional program. Now we would be getting into actually understanding the person's genetics, just looking back or doing the metabolic typing quiz, which tells us what's most needed and why, and putting it together individually. And that's what I do. I talk to people, ask them to tell me about themselves, and off we go.
So we have that information. You have that information on how people can contact you on your website to get their metabolic typing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
And back to sort of the entrepreneurial journey, what is your main role with the Life Enthusiast work? Are you mostly doing the research? Are you doing quality testing of the products? What, a mix of everything?
Well, I'm the founder of the company, so at the beginning it stood on me.
Yeah.
I still do a lot of the interviews and talks, and I talk to people as a health coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the front line of answering the hard questions.
Cool.
So I end up, usually a typical client will call us and spend half an hour talking to me, and maybe 2-3 10-minute follow-ups. And by that time, they will have learned enough to be able to just carry on and know what they need to do.
Right. What is the price of that service?
We charge $97 for the metabolic typing.
Okay, and that's the good thing about those kinds of things. This is one of the dilemmas that we go through a lot ourselves in our own family. It's sort of like, well, we're buying these vitamins that we think we need, but unless you've had, your blood analyzed or your metabolic typing, you may just be essentially creating expensive urine. You may or may not be something, that's assimilating in your body, or it may not be the right quality. So I would imagine that the metabolic typing helps not only identify some of the nutrients that your body type needs, but do you have any kind of recommendations or resources yourself for helping people identify through blood testing what kind of supplements they're deficient in?
Right. The metabolic typing is actually questions and answers, multiple choice and questions like, if I eat such and such, I feel whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Or the pupils of my eyes are small holes or wide open, or the ears are more pink than the rest of my face, or, there are physiological clues, and there are follow-ups to how you respond to foods, and based on that we're able to essentially hand you the user's manual to your body. And depending on your type, you need more of some minerals. Like a fast oxidizer will definitely need more calcium, zinc, and iodine, and slow oxidizer will probably need some copper. And I can go into the weeds and get technical, but specific needs. Like, for example, one type needs more vitamin B5, while the other needs more vitamin B6. One needs vitamin 3 as niacin, and the other one needs it as niacinamide. And one needs regular ascorbic acid, and the other one needs it buffered as calcium ascorbate. It just depends, right? And so there is no straightforward thing. Like, for example, the Exula products, they're made as the middle. They fit all parties. Like, all human needs a certain block of things, certain block of nutrients. But then we need to customize it going either into the highly efficient food processing or the inefficient food processing. We need to help people with calories. Some people need more fat. Some people need more carbs. Like, for example, this paleo or keto diet that has become so popular, it's suitable for the thyroid dominant types. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. There are endocrine dominances, thyroid, adrenal, pituitary, and in women also ovaries can be dominant. And so depending on the dominance, you will either gain weight or lose weight using certain food combinations.
Mm.
And so for one type, a weight loss diet will be high fat, low carb. For another type, it will be completely flipped. Then we need to understand the type you are and how to feed you.
Right.
And for example, in India, they had this, what is it called? Ayurvedic system of treating or understanding the nature of people. And they would have the 3 doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. And depending, right, these are actually real things. And so high kapha people need to, those are the ones that need to have more fire, because they're kind of burning slow. Whereas the vata people, they burn too fast. We need to slow them down, right?
Right.
And then the Chinese people, they did it with 5 elements. That's another way of talking about the same classification and understanding of how a person's genetics are expressed. We're not all the same. We need to always moderate the deficiency and feed the opposite.
One of my daydreams is to have a website where people can go in and they will fill it in and answer the questions, and it will be filtered through all of those systems. It's filtered through the metabolic typing, filtered through the Ayurvedic, and filtered through the elements, the Chinese elements, as well as even allopathic medicine, at least the naturopathic version of it, in order to then create sort of a combined recommendation based on the best knowledge from all the systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I have thought of quite a bit, and there is a way to do it. If you have $3 million,
yes,
let's do it.
Yeah.
I think actually we're getting close. You know, the technology is becoming available. Like Apple has Siri, and Amazon has Alexa, and Google has Hey Google, and this voice to text interface allows us to have voice input. So I should theoretically be able to interview you without me being there and feeding you into the artificial intelligence engine that I have just demonstrated that's in my head, that I could figure out some way to essentially have you talk to the AI, to the robot coach, and at least give you some ideas. But at this moment, it's me. I'm available.
Right. There you go.
And how can we be sure?
So for now then, so we can begin to bring this to a close, if you could share with us, do you have any daily, you are working a lot, I think you're working, oftentimes entrepreneurs end up working 6-7 days a week. But for a lot of us, it's not like work, because we also love what we're doing. So tell us about your daily creative habits that serve you well in your.
All right, so I'm one of the people who is on the acidic side naturally. So I wake up before 6. The naturally alkaline don't. They stay in bed until 9. Anyway, so I wake up early. I step into the office. I enjoy what I do. I play. It's not hard work.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
Yes, definitely.
But, it's a lot like being a farmer, right? You need to tend to the animals. If you want to milk the cow, you need to feed it, and you need to get rid of the manure, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. You take care of things, but you enjoy it because it's something you're building. So you have a day, you start off early. Do you do any kind of meditation or yoga or exercise?
Yeah, I do. I usually don't do my yoga until about 10:30. I take a break after a few hours. I actually do yoga and meditate while that. And I usually eat right after that. And I like to take another break mid-afternoon, maybe half an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And come dinner time, I've had enough.
Right. It's time to relax. So what about as far as your, as an entrepreneur, what do you think are the top 1, 2, or 3 things that serves you the most in your entrepreneurial endeavor, that is the most success, of all the things you're doing online? Because we all know, from between social media and sales on Amazon versus direct from your store versus podcast or YouTube, what are some of the most productive things you do toward growing your brand?
I think the YouTube channel is a good thing. People come from there. Our blog posts are a good thing. People come from there. It's changing, It used to be that we could send out an email and have 40-50% open rate. It's now only 10%. So I send 1,000 emails, 100 people open it, and 3 people react. So it's definitely less than that. So we're now looking at doing stuff through the mobile more than through the email.
Okay, through mobile, you mean like direct texting or?
Yeah, direct text to the phone.
And are you doing that through a specific service?
Not yet. We're just evaluating.
Because we looked into that as well, and some of them you were saying that they were pretty expensive.
Yeah,
so
especially for a startup, maybe not for a well-established business, but if you're on if you're in the startup phase and you got to allocate your budget specifically, then it can get pretty pricey, it seems.
Yeah, this has been the challenge for me. I at times bite off more than I can chew. I have committed to doing something, and $3,000 a month, bang, 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 and as a year in, there's $36,000, and what have I got to show for it?
Yeah.
Oh, not much.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be pretty steep pretty quickly. So, and especially if you're a solopreneur for the most part, where you're the primary operator, owner, CEO, do you have anyone that works with you? Does your wife work with you?
Yeah, so my wife's here. She's customer service for frontline. She's a highly organized person, and she's capable of keeping me from making too many blunders. And we have one gal that's maintaining the product database, and she also does a lot of the newsletter writing. Then I have one other person who's sort of good with editing videos and making graphics, so she's looking after that. I have another person that's looking after mostly edits, just catching where things have fallen through. And I've had one person working with us on marketing, and we're having difficult time of it at the moment because that's what I just mentioned. We can invest a whole pile of money and it sometimes turns into nothing.
Right.
So we're now in the stage where we're reevaluating to see what to do.
Okay.
I think it's, I don't want to be all negative about it, but at this moment we're not having the easiest time. I need to find another way to reach people who would like to appreciate service. And maybe that's my basic mistake. Maybe this is the idealist in me that's doing it the wrong way, where I should have gone for the $50 item that costs me only $5 and cynically sell it on Amazon with the cynically started seeded reviews and all of that, right?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of conversations like that because we're kind of on the same page with you of like, it just kind of feels really icky and you don't really want to do things that feel icky, and yet
that's what gets people paid. Well, I don't know, maybe there's some karma in there, and I have, I certainly believe in the concept of karma and getting back what you put in. So I'm staying away from it.
Yeah. Definitely.
But it's just, I'm just seeing that some people do better than I do.
Sure. Well, and I think the thing is, we're in it like you, we're in it for the long haul. If you go the route that is antithetical to your ethics and to your values, it will never work, and you won't. And on top of that, you'll be miserable. So that won't work. But yeah, I should just stay on the journey of discovering and pull back from those really steep investments that are not showing a pretty quick return. But doing things like, I would say the simplest thing that we could offer that might help you the most would be things like optimizing, writing your articles for keywords that you can actually rank for. And that has made the biggest difference in our own website's organic growth than anything else we've done.
Mm-hmm.
So that organic growth, and And one of the best ways to do that is to build out your YouTube channel. And I would say with short, very informative video clips, concisely to singular topics. So for instance, if you're going to be talking about the humic acid, then this is about humic acid, and you would need to keyword it. A resource that we would recommend that's a wonderful free tool for keywording that is as good as many of the paid tools out there, but now it's free, is neilpatel.com/ubersuggest. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I'm subscribed to Neil Patel's work.
So his ubersuggest app is free, and that service is wonderful. So you just search, the topic online, and before you write about it and see how difficult it is to rank for, how many searches, that sort of thing. Then you make sure when you post a YouTube video, you optimize keywords on the YouTube video. And then you have that video also placed on your website. So that synchronicity, that circular kind of connection from one to the other that keeps pointing people back will help bring you a lot more traffic.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Yeah, we're glad to. If you have any questions on any of that, that's one of the things that we're avidly on the journey of learning and improving ourselves. So we could just have entrepreneur to entrepreneur conversations about that. If it's anything we can help with, we would love to do so. So I would start there. But back to let you go before it's too much later. Could we close with your sharing, if you would like to, your vision of where you would like to go with your company as an entrepreneur?
Well, my original vision was that my children would join me in the business and take it over and run with it. But they both decided that they want to do different things. So at this point, I have found that the children of Jabari, of the original Life-Enthusiast, are carrying on with the company. So my vision is that we evolve the company to a place where the next generation can take over, because I'm entertained here and I'm enjoying it, but I don't know, will I hold out into my 70s, 80s, 90s? How long? I don't know. As far as vision goes, I would love for the world to finally get the fact that you cannot get to a happy place by doing the wrong things. And that's the strategic thing, right? Like it's educating people about functional medicine, educating people about the fact that they need to understand that they vote with their dollars. The greatest power of all consumers is in their wallet. And so the wallet dictates. Money is like the oxygen of the economy. So whatever you spend money on, that's what grows.
That's
so
a good
if you
point.
want a decent service to be available, then you need to spend the money on decent service.
Well, I think that, so what we're seeing since we represent a lot of creators, and there is this, everything's in transition. So everything is struggling to get to its next level, like the caterpillar to the cocoon to the butterfly beating its wings to try and get out before it can be fully transformed. And so many creators are at the place where there's no way that they can be compensated when they are competing against China and digital processes and whatever. But what is happening is a return and a recycling back to connections with owners, connections with the artists and writers who are actually creating, not this mass production kind of thing. And that's what you represent, and as far as, like you said, you were 69, right? 67, sorry. So, relative, like you have, easily another 30 years. It's like, so if you're not doing this, then what would you be doing? So that was something to consider. It's like, well, because I know that you're not the type that's going to retire. You're still working in the area that you love. So, who knows where that can go.
Yeah, that question was, should I retire? To retire to do what?
Yeah, exactly. If you're loving, maybe have a little more free time so you're not doing everything and juggling all the plates. But surely, that's a great way to transition back to the original children and back to your children. Who knows? They want something else because this is what's familiar, and young people seek new, what's new and different. And then so many of them end up making their way back home. So who knows? Yeah,
who knows how this turns out? But the vision, well, I will see the world be more educated and more centered and more understanding that there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
And I've watched it in other industries when people buy on price alone.
Yes.
They end up pricing out service out of whatever they get, which then actually ends up costing more in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. In terms of health as well as overall economy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, we love what you're doing. We will continue to be customers, and we'll share your story and what you're doing at Life-Enthusiast with our audience as well, and look forward to continuing the conversation with you, Martin.
Sounds good. If you want, I mean, you said you were going to put it into the show notes, but yes. It's life-enthusiast.com. People can come and visit it. I am available for 12 hours a day.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.